Ma'am, if you're ready, we can start.
Yes, I'm ready.
A very warm welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this webinar titled Beyond the Brief, the Versatile Role of an In-House Counsel. So before we start, just to understand today's fast-paced business environment, how the role of an in-house counsel has evolved far beyond reviewing contracts and providing legal advice. And in-house counsel has become more of all the counsels have become more of strategic partners, trusted advisors, risk assessors, and critical members of the business team. So, for the first 30 minutes or so, we will delve into the world of the in-house counsel. We'll explore the various hats they wear, the unique challenges they face, and the essential skills that is to be needed to excel in their roles. And the last 10 to 15 minutes we can have for question answers. We can open that to the audience. So, without any further ado, it is an honor and privilege for me on behalf of IAMC to welcome our speaker today. With over 16 years of distinguished tenure as legal head at GE Vernova Hydropower APAC region, Ms. Mehak Oberoi, she's mastered the art of orchestrating legal strategies in the dynamic renewables sector. Being a lawyer and trained mediator, she successfully navigates intricate legal landscapes and seamlessly fuses business objectives with compliance mandates, ensuring operational fluidity and strategic alignment. Beyond legal realms, she champions diversity and women empowerment initiatives, notably being a founding member of the Global Renewables Women's Network. Her accolades include leadership awards for multi-million dollar negotiations and resolving complex disputes, underscoring her commitment to driving sustainable growth and organizational excellence. Thank you so much, ma'am, for accepting our invitation to join us for this discussion. So, the first question that I would want to ask you is that what, according to you, entails the role of an in-house counsel, and how is it versatile and different from that of a law firm?
Sunan, I think your network is not so good. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's breaking up.
Ma'am, can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bit of a lag, but it's better.
Okay.
Okay, so thank you so much. It's great to have so many aspirants and young lawyers, to delve into my world. So welcome you all, and thank you so much for taking out the time to hear me out. In terms of the question of versatility and how it is different from a law firm, there is a stark distinction. Let's just say that the law firms and the litigation teams, they sweat in the sun, but I sit and sweat in the air-conditioned office. You're sweating nonetheless because the stress is just the same. And I think one key difference would be that I have one client, and that is my company. And a law firm, of course, has a gazillion clients. So what tends to happen is that I would be much more invested in my business versus the detached role of a law firm. So that makes a world of difference in that sense. Because you tend to understand the business better, you understand the risk appetite better. You get into aspects and commercials that a law firm or lawyers of law firms will not get into. Neither do they have to. There's nothing wrong about that, but they just don't need to. So yeah, that would be the key difference.
Thank you, ma'am. So understanding the difference between what the role of an in-house is, could you elaborate more on what is one of the most important functions of an in-house counsel?
So like you rightly said, Sunana, that we wear multiple hats. We do. We are strategic advisors, we are risk managers, we are business advisors, we are legal advisors, we are crisis managers. But I think the key role would be that of a business enabler. So when I say that, what I mean is that you need to sync your objectives with that of the business. So you're not an independent function. You need to be able to understand what the priorities of the business are, what are the deals they want this quarter, what is the money that they need to recover this quarter, what are the targets that they need to meet, so that you sync your priorities together and you also work as a team along with your finance and your business teams to achieve the same targets. So you need to be that kind of a business enabler. And I think I'd read somewhere that in-house counsels are like brakes on a F1 car. You can't go too fast. You can't go too fast if you don't have the brakes. And you can't slam them all the time because then you won't win the race.
Hmm.
So, they need to have trust in us that if I'm going to ask them to slam the brakes, that's because there's going to be a crash. I'm not testing waters over there. So, yeah, you kind of work in sync in that way.
I think that's quite a great example of the F1. Ma'am, so amongst all of these functions that you perform, how do you really manage your work?
Very tough question. So contrary to the belief that everyone has that it's the law firm that you're working long hours and all of that, you're working equally long hours in an in-house role as well. Um, but again, that also one is a key difference over here because um, let's just say again, in a law firm, you'll have priorities. Like if I have 10 people in a team, one person will be working towards one client or one project at one time, one deal. In my case, I have to be all over the place. So yes, it gets more stressful. But I think the one key to that is the Eisenhower principle. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it basically is that if your work is important and urgent, you
Hmm.
do it now. If
Hmm.
it is important and if it is important and I'm forgetting, if it's important and not urgent, you
Hmm.
schedule it. And if it's not important and urgent, you delegate it. And if it's not important and not urgent, you delete it. So that's what one needs to do.
That's how
And
you filter your
you
work.
have to, yeah, because you're just doing so many roles at the same time that it's very important to do that. And I think the second thing would be, I mean, you tend to read a lot of stuff. I didn't know I was already doing this for so many years, and somebody came and gave it actually a name. It's called time boxing. So, which is one of the most sought out productivity tools
Hmm.
by the Harvard Business Review. And I've been doing it forever, but I read about it this year that that's what it's called. So it basically means that in one sense, you're balancing and you're instead of looking out for a work life balance, you're doing a work life integration, which means you're kind of seamlessly trying to weave your work with your personal life. So you're chalking out time for everything during the same day. So you'll use a calendar to put in every single thing that you have to do, whether it's professional, whether it's personal, everything, so that you integrate it together. Because a work life balance practically it doesn't happen. I mean,
Right.
you can't, especially after the COVID world, you cannot switch off your computer at 5 o'clock and say that, okay, I'm done now. And I handle the Asia Pacific region, so it's not even practical for me to do that. I'm dealing with different time zones. So it doesn't work like that. So, you have to map out your
Integrate.
calendar. Yes. Yeah.
Think that's quite great advice, and that how you should. I think that time. What did you just say,
Time
ma'am?
boxing. Time
Time
boxing.
boxing. Correct. I think that's the apt word
Yeah.
for it. So moving further, ma'am, how do you see the role of in-house counsel evolving in responses to changes in technology?
Um, so if you're talking in terms of artificial intelligence, I don't deny the fact that it does not have its pitfalls,
Hmm.
but I think it's going to help at least in-house counsels a lot because,
Oh,
like I said, we're doing multiple things. So a lot of what tends to happen is during the course of the day, you're also doing a lot of mundane things, which you can't take away from your desk because that's just the way it is. So what AI would do is it would standardize. It would help us standardize a lot of procedures. It will help us map out things that are mundane that we can streamline, make templates for it, do training modules, things of that sort. So that's the part about the in-house piece. Otherwise, also from an arbitration front, it is a great for dispute management. Rather, it's a great tool for dispute prevention, because in the kind of field I am in, there are a lot of complexities in projects. You're looking at a lot of that stuff. So mapping out your projects, mapping out the issues that are coming by. So you're kind of foreseeing the issues that may come. So you tend to prevent your disputes. Then when you do unfortunately go into arbitration, you'll also be looking at selection of arbitrations, which right now is very random. I would have worked with 10, I would be recommended another 5, and then I'm just going to try to compare the resumes or the expertise and take a call. So if you have something more um, which has some sort of a machine intelligence in it, let's just say, then they will
hmm.
that that comparison, that matchmaking between the resume, the expertise, the past decisions, etc., would be much more. So those kind of things will definitely help us.
But I think that will be a universal question that everybody keeps asking: will AI just take away our jobs or not? Any views on that?
No, it can't, because all said and done, a human element will always be required. And you can't take that away at all. I don't think so. I mean, even if I'm talking about training modules or I'm talking about standardizing procedures, I have to give the right prompt to be able to receive the right output. So till the time they don't get the right prompt, they don't know what they're going to do about it, right? So yeah, it can't take away our jobs. Definitely not lawyers. It can't.
I think that's a sigh for all of the audience listening to you, right? So, ma'am, what do you think are the key challenges faced by in-house counsel in balancing legal obligation with the business objectives of the company?
um I think the right balance in between being a protector for the company and an enabler, like I was talking about last time. So I think that balance is really needed. I'll try to give you an example. I hope it's not too boring, but so for example, I'm sure all the lawyers would be familiar with the concept of indemnity. So
Yes.
if my customer comes and tells me that you need to indemnify me to bring the goods from your warehouse to my site. Now it's a normal enough clause, and the customer will obviously say that it's a no-go
Hmm.
and that they need it for sure. And yes, my team would want to also give into something like that because it's standard. That's industry standard. That's what they'll ask for. So now I need to enable the business, but I also need to mitigate the risk. So the kind of questions that I would ask is that who's going to take the transit insurance? Do you have, do you actually have a proper road from where we move to where we unload? Or has our technical team done a route survey? So those are the kind of things that you will try to find out. It's all about asking the right questions. So once you have the response to all of that, then accordingly, you can add on to maybe provide some riders, in the clause, or you can take a call in that sense, so that you balance it. You're giving them the leeway to be able to put in that clause, but you're ensuring that you're mitigating the risk by asking all the right questions and accordingly incorporating it in the contract. So yeah.
So I think that case was quite practical and it's needed. So it's not something which is boring for sure. And ma'am, also that like I mentioned that there are different functions and you're as an in-house counsel, you wear a lot of hats. So you are also a crisis manager. So could you tell us one incident you would have in mind that you could tell us how you would have dealt with it and what was maybe just a brief of the facts that you could just walk us through?
So yes, very much a crisis manager. In fact, I'm in the middle of resolving a criminal case, which I cannot talk about right now. So let's leave that aside. Let's talk about another one. So on one of my sites, there was a flood. So a lot of the goods and the equipment, etc., got the slush took it away and completely destroyed it. So in these kind of situations, there is a lot of crisis management from the front, that you have to ensure that all your people are extracted. Now, of course, I'm physically not going to go to do that, but I will be involved to the extent that somebody has to give me information that they've been extracted, not extracted, etc. Then I'm going to look at the contract to try and understand if what are my obligations under the contract in terms of safety of workers, my workers, of course, my employees, yes, but do I have any obligation to look at the needs or the safety of the customers, employees, or the subcontractors that are on the site? Do I need to suspend? um, how long do I foresee the suspension? What could be the impact on me? So it's a lot of mix of strategic decision and crisis management at the same time. So yeah, one of those.
So thank you, ma'am. Thank you for that incident that you've shared. So apart from crisis management and making strategic decisions for the company, do you also involve yourself in litigation strategies?
Very much, actually, very much. In fact, I have this really funny incident in during COVID. We had this matter, and it was in this really remote town, and the world was shutting down, and we were trying to get order in our favor, and courts were shutting down, and the registrar was sitting inside his house and did not want to come to court. um, and we needed that order because we were going to lose something close to 180 crores. So you're tying up, you're strategizing with the law firms, with the lawyers on the ground, you're trying to get papers signed, there are no taxis available, you're still. So though I was handling it from here, from back in the comfort of my house, as I'd like to say, definitely, but mile by mile, leap by leap, I was with them all the way. We actually reached a point where the judge locked himself up in his chambers because he was a family court judge and he didn't know what to do with so much of money and what sort of order he should pass. So people were banging on his chamber doors to ask him to please come out and do something about this. So yeah, you have all sorts of cases, and we're involved pretty much all the time with everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting, ma'am. I could add a lot of interesting things that we can keep talking about for the next 10 years, maybe. Ma'am, moving on to the next question that I have in mind is that in what ways does an in-house counsel contribute to risk management initiative within the organization?
So like us, you have to be, as an in-house counsel, you have to be proactive. You cannot be reactive. reactive is something law firms can do because you go up to them, you tell them that now tell me what to do. So they will always react to the situation you put in front of them. I need to be proactive. I need to be able to identify what are the risks that may come up because I'm in tune with the business. So either sometimes it's in the, it's in the form of, let's just say some lessons that we've learned from our previous mistakes, previous projects, etc. And sometimes it could be some latest law or some latest court precedent that would come about, for which I will need to analyze the impact on my business. So yeah, risk management definitely.
Ma'am, anything in particular, any example that you would like to share of risk management
So
within?
actually so very recently, I don't know if all the lawyers would be aware, should be actually, there was a Cox and Kings judgment that had come out, right? Regarding non-signatories being added to the arbitration proceedings as parties. So that is something that has a very, very major impact on my business because the multi-layered structure that we follow, it comes down from, the end customer to the EPC contractor and then me. So the project is common. The object is common to commission that particular project. And a lot of the times the terms may also flow through. So I am the classic case where either one of the parties would try to pull me in to the arbitration, which can be very chaotic for a business like mine because I will constantly be fending off litigation all the time. So that is something actually we're currently still working on, trying to understand in what way can we mitigate it. But yeah, that would actually be the most recent example.
Yeah, okay, ma'am. Ma'am, if you've talked about how in-house counsels are involved in litigation strategies. Could you also tell me that whether do you end up negotiating a lot as an in-house counsel?
All the time, sometimes with your own people and sometimes with people outside, but yes, all the time, all the
And
time.
how important is the skill of negotiation for an in-house counsel?
I think it's very important. Like I said, you're negotiating in-house and you're negotiating outside as well. So it's both. I think a couple of tips that I think I always follow would be that there is a 80-20 rule, which typically you use as the Pareto principle, but it is something that if you transition into the negotiation world, it really means that the last 20% of your negotiations are going to get you 80% of your results. So you have to be very careful of how much of time and energy in what part of your negotiation do you spend. Um, and the second would be the law of indirect effort. So when I say that, I mean that if you act indirectly, you will tend to achieve more than you would if you act directly. So for example, if I try really hard to achieve what I want to achieve in a negotiation, the other party will push back. So how I need to really do it is I need to be open. I need to seem as if I'm trying to take their interests into consideration and finding a solution, because that will help them open up and allow them to be receptive to some sort of a compromise or a common ground. The idea is a win-win solution, right? The idea is that you win more of your interests and not just more of the arguments in the entire context of the transaction. So yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, and considering that how important the skill of negotiation is for an in-house counsel or anybody, it's a life skill. So, what is it that one key lesson that you think you've learned during your tenure as an in-house counsel that you would like to share with the participants today?
A key lesson,
Yes.
a lesson in leadership.
Yeah.
Um, I think one important lesson would be that Actually, this is not even a leadership lesson. This is actually just a general lesson that you have to be you have to be able to accept the fact that you can be wrong too.
Mm.
We have not reached where we have without making any mistakes or without doing any wrong. So you have to be compassionate to yourself as you have to be with other people if they make mistakes. There's this I was reading this speech by Theodore Roosevelt where he said that if I make 75% of the time, if I'm making the right decisions, I would have reached the highest measure of my expectations. So that is the president of the United States. His expectation is 75% of the time he wants to be right. And as per research, they say that if you're even right 55% of the time, you can walk down Wall Street and you can earn $1 million a day. So if 55% is what even Wall Street expects from you, who are you to say that you can't be wrong? You can. So you need to accept that you can be wrong and have that empathy for others and for yourself as well. It's okay. Doesn't mean you don't try hard and not make those mistakes again, but yeah,
You learn from your mistakes, but you'll have to accept them
yeah,
first. Correct, ma'am.
yeah.
That's absolutely a wonderful advice and a lesson that we all learn during our phases in life, not just professional but personal as well. So, ma'am, before we end our discussion and move on to the questions, if the audience have any, one last thing that I would like to ask you is that we have a lot of young members in the audience. So, any advice that you would like to give them on how to have a career in the in-house counsel, and what if you could tell us broadly about what are the pros and cons, if any, that you would think or you would suggest the young lawyers to think about this role and right after college as a fresher.
So, contrary to the belief that you shouldn't enter an in-house role before having some experience, in a law firm or litigation, etc., which was the case earlier, definitely. But it isn't anymore because, like I said, it's just such an expansive role that one, you definitely can go in right after college. Um, yes, you have to, of course, be sure that that's what you want to do. Maybe at best, what you need to do is you'll need to zero in on the kind of industry you want to go into,
Mm,
because every industry space is going to have different work. The nuances of the business will be different. The risk appetite will be different. The kind of contracts that you do will be different.
different.
Your bargaining power will be different depending upon which side of the table, or the customer or the supplier that you're sitting on. So, all of those things add to it. So you really need to be able to zero in on what side do or what side or what industry that you would like to be in. So that is a crucial aspect. And yes, you can go in as a fresher, absolutely. I don't think there are any cons as such. Like I said, it's you sweat in the sun or you sweat in the air conditioned office. Um, you still do it. So I don't think there's a con. It's just a matter of your own preference.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the discussion. I think we already have a lot of questions in the chat, and I
Okay.
also would like request all the participants to raise your hand. We'll also make sure that your microphones are not on mute, so that you can just speak and ask any questions that you have for ma'am. We have two questions for now in the chat box. Pritha Krishna is asking, what are the five most important traits that a legal counsel should have? And as you mentioned, I'm not sure what this is. Yeah, so what are the five most important traits that a legal counsel should have is the first question.
Five. I think somewhere that has been answered, but let's just see.
Yeah.
Um, You should be able to think strategically. You should have the right, you should have a balanced mind to be able to know when you can and when you cannot take the risk. So a more, I wouldn't say that you need a conservative approach or a liberal approach, but somewhere in the middle. That's why I'm calling it, having a balanced mind. So yeah, thinking strategically, balanced mind, amiable. You need to be amiable because you're working with a lot of functions. There is bound to be friction between you and the commercial teams, because a lot of the times they are going to feel that you're not signing off on something that they really, really need. So it's very important for them to understand that you are on their side, but they need to understand the risk that we may face. So yes, you need to. So interpersonal skills is really important. Um, Emotional agility also. Um, a lot of, again, I mean, stress is in every job. But like I said, because I keep on repeating this, that there are so many varied roles that you're playing at the same time. So I feel you're switching really fast. It's like I'm figuring out what to do in the flood situation, and then I'm negotiating a contract, and then I'm figuring out the budget for the next litigation. So you're just kind of switching really, really fast as to what you're doing, and then you're doing India, and then you're doing Malaysia, and then you're doing Australia, and the time zones are different. So um, the chances of burnout, I feel, can more often than not be more. I feel so. I mean, I'm sure people in law firms would think differently. So yeah, emotional agility is also something that's very important. So how many have we gone through? 4, is it?
I got
Pritha,
it.
I have 4 for you right now. I can't think of a fifth one.
So, and ma'am, like you were talking about time zones, different places that you would have to manage at the same time. So, Pritha is asking, how do you manage to keep up with the diverse set of laws for Asia-based region?
So look, how it will typically work is that if I'm based out of India, of course, I'm expected to know all the laws. But when you're working with different jurisdictions, you will end up hiring local counsel to advise you on that particular law. But let me tell you, that does not make your task simpler, because you will possibly be interpreting the law with them. You will be figuring out how you're going to implement that law within your business. So there are a lot of tips and tricks there as well. But yes, Pritha, your life would not be so difficult in terms of the law. You'll be able to hire counsel who will be able to tell you. And with time, you would get to know the law yourself. So you'll become familiar as well. So sometimes you may not need to go out. Also, there are a lot of contractual aspects. So the contractual first principles more or less will not change. So unless you're actually looking at a specific point of law, you'll possibly probably do it yourself.
Thank you, ma'am. She's also asking if there are any monetary difference between working in a law firm and working as a legal counsel.
The difference is 30%, Pritha. You pay 10% tax in a law firm, you pay 30% in an in-house role. So yeah, that's the difference.
I think one last question she has is, how could one switch into legal counsel roles? Switch from, I'm guessing, from a law firm job role to legal counsel role.
So I don't think it's such an issue. Though actually, some of the companies, yes, do say that they'd like prior in-house experience. And the reason why they say that is because the organization is structured in a very different way. It does not work the way a law firm works. So, you have a lot of stakeholder management that you're doing amongst all the other different things as well. So, for a law firm, sometimes a person who comes from a law firm, it can be a rude shock. If you're coming directly from college, it is different, but from a law firm, it can often be very overwhelming, that why am I doing this? I'm a lawyer. But it's all part of the package. So, but I still don't think it is difficult. For example, if you've been in litigation, I'm sure you can convince your interviewer that you have a litigation background, and so you will be able to make the right calls as far as litigation is concerned. Also, if if you go through a lot of the job descriptions that are coming out these days, even for in-house, a lot of them will say that prior litigation experience or prior law firm experience or prior LLM,
Is
they're all
desired. Mm.
it depends. So it's not like you can't do it.
Good evening, ma'am. Is Pritiman Patro
Hi,
pursuing maritime?
Pritiman.
Good evening, ma'am. I am pursuing my maritime law, LLM in maritime law.
Okay.
Ma'am, can I know the career prospectus in in-house counsel as in abroad or in India?
So maritime law is upcoming, Pritiman, in India, and abroad there will definitely be a much better. Someone
Can,
needs to go on
uh,
mute, Sanana.
yeah.
So maritime law is something that's coming up in India. It is not as developed in
Okay.
terms of a practice area compared to outside India. But I also think you could be one of the pioneers in bringing all that about. So it can be a game changer for you.
Okay, game changer like means I have completed my LLM in maritime law. So it will be best to pursue internships in Bombay or somewhere else, or like outside India, it will be better. Career opportunities are
So, I'm sorry, but I'm not very familiar with that. I could find out for you, but I do know that in Gujarat,
okay.
uh, they've opened an institute which is supposed to specialize in maritime law. So,
Yes, Gujarat
I
Maritime
guess from
University.
there you should be able to get more insights.
Okay,
But
okay.
yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
We have one more question in the chat. Leila is asking if uh, how to become Mehak Oberoi because she's blown away.
How kind of you. Sorry, I lost your voice, Sunana. What was
She's
the
blown
last
away
part?
by your personality and she wants to know how to be Mehak Oberoi.
No. That's so kind of you. You don't need to be Mehak Oberoi. You need to be Leila. And I think you need to own your space and your personality, and I think you'll do great wonders.
We have another question, Vikash. He's asking how to manage the situation being in-house counsel when management compels to go contrary to the settled law with regarding to the subject at hand.
When management asks you to go contrary,
Yeah, to the settled law with
settle
regarding.
law in hand. So look, that's where the risk appetite comes in. um, like I said about the brakes on the F1 car, you have to know when to slam the brakes, because that's going to be a crash. So you need to put your foot down, and there is a possibility that the board will still say that we're still going to go ahead, but then that is on their peril, not yours. Yours is to make sure that you ensure that the company is streamlined with the law and is compliant. But typically, in my experience, if you slam those brakes and you put your foot down, they're not going to do it. Nobody the management doesn't have the kind of guts to go completely against what a general counsel would say. It doesn't happen.
Ma'am, we have another question. Anushka wants some advice, general advice like do's and don'ts. She's a second year law student. Some do's and don'ts in general.
Do's and don'ts. Do's, I would say that definitely try to do an internship with an in-house company. It would give you a lot of insight as to how it really works. But definitely choose the right one, because the nature of work that you would get as an intern in a law in an in-house will be very different from what it would be as as that in a law firm. In a law firm, you'll probably get a lot of legal research, Actually, more often than not, more of that. But in an in-house, it will be a combination of a lot of things. So if you go to a good company, you will get a lot of exposure. So that would be definitely one of the do's. And like I said earlier, enhance your interpersonal skills. They're key. You're on mute, Sunana.
I'm so sorry. So Mr. Verma is asking if where you find in global operations, you had to take steps to reconcile beforehand for the agreement to avoid future litigation, and accessible to ADR by parties. If you have any kind of experience in that that you would like to
Sorry,
share.
can you repeat the question for me?
Where you find in global operations, you had to take steps to reconcile beforehand for the agreements so that you can avoid future litigation proactively and have more access to ADR with the parties, if you have any experience in that.
Mr. Verma, can you switch on your camera? I'm not very sure if I've understood your question clearly. Are you there?
Mr. GSK Verma? Yeah, I think he's coming on.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me.
I
Yeah,
can
we can hear you.
hear you, and I can see a blurry vision of you as well.
Oh,
So, are you trying to ask me that those are really nice windows? Hi, hi.
right.
So,
Hi.
what is your name? What's your first name?
Yeah, my name is Suresh.
Suresh. Hi, Suresh. So,
Yeah,
can you rephrase your question? I'm not sure if I've clearly understood it.
yeah. Basically, I'm thinking about you have the exposure at the global operations level. When at the huge businesses like GE and all, when you have the global agreements that you are looking into, how you will ensure that proactively you will avoid the litigations that are coming up as you discussed earlier, how you will see that, how you will avoid such kind of litigations, uh,
Yeah,
because either party it will hurt you, so how you will avoid
yeah.
that, and susceptible to ADR, and how you will encourage the ADR practices in your agreements, so that if you could share that kind of experience, that will be useful for me. uh,
Yeah. So, a lot of the times you will, like I said earlier, in fact, that there's feedback of experience, is what we call it, FOE. So there's so many projects which are constantly under execution, right? So you will learn from your mistakes. You will understand what are the things that are not covered in this contract, which is causing you to enter into a dispute. And so you will make sure that your next contract has that particular clause or that particular clarification in your contract. So that's what you do. Now, as far as ADR is concerned, typically arbitration is pretty much something that you will find in 99% of the contracts. It will be there, it's always there. What we are trying to do in India right now is to move from ad hoc arbitration to institutional arbitration. So that's an ongoing transition that we're making right now. And the next would be, as far as ADR is concerned, also mediation. So that is also something that we're trying to introduce in our contracts globally now. So yeah, that's how we try to adopt the ADR mechanism.
especially after this Mediation Act 2023, about the
Yes.
execution of the award. I think
Yes, it's
mediation.
not notified yet. It's not notified yet, but yes, it will do wonders for us if that comes about. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a couple of more questions. Can we take them?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So Kunal and I think Mariam Fatima also is asking to gain experience in internships for in-house roles. What are your suggestions that you could have? Any top three companies names that you might have for internships?
Um, Very difficult to say. I'm actually not familiar with which companies are taking in interns, because in-house companies in-house are slightly more conservative about taking in interns. But ICICI, I think, should be a good bet if somebody's looking for banking. GE does not take in interns all the time. So just to make that clear, we have specific slots and not necessarily on a yearly basis, because we would like to give meaty opportunities. So as and when that comes about, we do that. I'll have to think this through. I can't think of any company, so Nana, I'll probably
We'll
give you
get
some and
back.
you can
Yeah,
pass them on.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, there's another question, and Mr. VK, how much is the grip on drafting in this profession helps in for the role of an in-house?
Oh, drafting definitely helps. I think in any field, but a lawyer more so. Because like I said, when you have to mitigate your risks, you're going to have to put it down in your contract in some way. So actually, what I feel is it's twofold. One is you have to be a really good draftsman to be able to put your risk mitigations down in the contract in a proper manner. But two is you also need to know when to hold back on your drafting skills, because which many may find peculiar, but it's very true, because a lot of the times you are dealing with customer drafts, so you have to pick and choose your battles, which a law firm would more often than not never do. They will pick on every single word and fight about it or negotiate about it. I, as an in-house counsel, have to again gauge my risk appetite. I need to hold back on my drafting skills sometimes and say, okay, as long as the sense is being conveyed, I have to let this go, because I've got bigger battles to fight. So yes, you have to balance your drafting skills as well.
Ma'am, we have another question. So, okay, there's no name. I think they've logged in from their phone. So they're into EPC project management operation. How to identify risk in terms of AI technology, litigation, and negotiate in-house counseling to stakeholders, regarding natural disasters, floods, global warming, basically force majeure changes in
How
the
to manage force majeure through AI is uh,
how
what
to
is the
identify risks in terms of AI technology litigation and negotiate in-house counseling to stakeholders. I'm not very sure of the second part of the question also. I think
okay,
we the first part.
let's just try to break that up. I'm not very sure what I'm listening to. Um, as far as AI tools are concerned, if you're looking at risks that you want to highlight to stakeholders, yes, there are risks. Yes, there are pitfalls. All of us are learning along the way. One of the risks would be that you have to accept the fact that there is a bias in that tool, in that machine as well, because that machine has been made by a human after all. So there is a risk involved in it. Second is, I'm sure you guys must have heard of the concept of hallucination. So, there was this very funny case in New York where two young lawyers quoted two cases from ChatGPT and put it in front of in a bail application in court, which never existed. So that's what ChatGPT can also do. So yes, there are risks associated with it, but I still feel in our in-house field, it has more advantages than disadvantages. So like I was saying, for your EPC operations, etc., if you have, there are a lot of tools that will help dispute prevention in mapping your delays, mapping your LDs, mapping your critical paths, collating those with your with your concurrent delays, etc. I mean, I know there are tools for that already also, but they will just streamline it further. And like I was talking about, the arbitrators or procedures of arbitration as well, like ICC and all have already started streamlining their processes along with with the help of AI. There are judges that are drafting awards with the help of AI, in fact, in Brazil and in UK also, I think. So yeah, AI has its advantages. Now I'm not sure if I've answered your question, Mr. Anonymous. I don't know your name, but if you can rephrase the rest of your question, I'm not sure if I got all of that.
Ma'am, we'll move forward.
Sure.
Can you advise, Sudhakar is asking if you can advise how to improve drafting skills and arguments to be a successful advocate. Not very sure if that's relevant.
Sudhakar. Hi, Sudhakar. I'm sure they're going to teach you something called DPC in college. That's going to enhance your drafting skills for sure. And for the rest, it's it's on the job learning. You're going to learn along the way, and you will make mistakes, but that happens. I'm not I also have scope for improvement. Nobody can draft perfectly. You will draft as per the situation that you perceive at your end and from your mindset and your business's appetite. So everyone will draft differently. Doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but yeah, and read a lot of judgments. That will help your drafting skills.
I think this could be okay. There are two more questions. Is there a work-life balance in in-house role, or is it just a room? I think we started with
We've answered that. Yeah, it is a rumor. Very much a rumor. Yeah.
The last question maybe for the session, if there are no other questions, then um, Vishwajit is asking, a lot of times corporates hire law firms for dispute resolution or for M&As. In that case, what is the role of an in-house counsel?
There's a very prominent and active role because you are the one who will explain the commercials to them. You are the ones who will tell them what the risk appetite is. You are the one who will tell them what is your deal breaker. You are the one who will form what you will call a MIT in the transaction, which will be M is for your must haves, I is for your ideally have, and T is for your trade offs. So all of that, all of those nuances is something you are going to strategize in front, along with your external counsel. So you have to be, and like I was talking, even in the litigation, you have to be there all the time. If you want to keep the ball rolling and you need to make the right calls, because the outside counsel is not going to make all the calls themselves. Okay, they are going to come back to you and ask you to sign off on everything. And
Ma'am, I think you're on mute.
oh, where did I go on mute? Did you hear me?
I couldn't hear the last sentence, ma'am.
I don't know what I said in the end.
The commercials, at the end of the day, the lawyers also come and ask the in-house counsel that to.
Yeah, so you have to be, if you're going to sign off on something, you may as well be cued in as to what you're signing off for. So you are involved in a very large way. You are the point of contact. You're the representative of the company that is engaging the counsel and making sure the ball continues to run without any risks. So yes, you have a very key role there.
We have Mr. Pradeep Kumar who would like to ask a question. Mr. Pradeep, you can go ahead. You've raised your hand.
Yeah, madam, good evening, madam. This is Pradeep.
Hi, Pradeep.
Yeah, madam. Could you suggest any reading material or books regarding ADR?
On ADR, I can suggest one on arbitration. There is one that's called Everything You Need to Know About Arbitration by Tariq Khan. That's a good book for you to read if you want to get all the nitty-gritties and all the practical realities of arbitration. So that should be a good book. And for mediation, there are a lot of books. One would be there is one by Christopher Moore. I'm forgetting what it's called, but there is one book by that author. There's only one book, so you'll know. And if you want to read something on negotiation as well, there is one called Getting to a Yes. And then there is, if you don't have the patience to read, actually, then you can, there's this really small and concise book on negotiation by Brian Tracy. So that is also something you can read. And then there is another negotiation book would be, I think, a Negotiation Genius, as I recall it. So I think that should be enough for a few months.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
So I think we'll have one last question that's there in the chat box, and with that, we can conclude the session for today. Vishwanath is asking that he's a civil engineer and there's a practical case. How to fix the developer if he runs away from the project without completing on the ground that the developer has become insolvent or has no money and no further sales of the plots. So there's no physical agreement to complete the gated community or the project. What is the way to bring back the developer?
Vishwanath, can you just can you come on video? I would just like to understand the facts a little bit more.
Yeah. Good evening, madam. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can hear you. Hi.
Yeah, very nice talking to you.
Likewise.
This is actually, I'm basically a civil engineer
Yeah.
and commercial director. This is a gated community. It's one basic issue is the developer has run away by not completing the project. It is individual houses project, and he's saying
Okay.
that he's insolvent and empty plots are not so. I mean, he could not sell it. So he cannot complete any amenities what he was promised.
Mm-hmm.
That was the say actually.
Mm.
And the occupants so far out of 450 plots, only 120 plots are occupied and remaining are empty. And this maintenance and other amenities what they promised, no, that he could not. I mean, the builder or developer he could not do it. So now it has come on to these occupants only. It's the total burden. So how
Okay.
we can bring back that developer? Because there is no agreement. He has made only a construction agreement between them, and he completed whatever the plots are sold, and he completed that. Rest of the things he kept it empty and he gone away.
There is no agreement between you and the developer?
Yeah, that's a very pity. Only the construction agreement, individual plot houses agreement was there. And the basic thing is, he said it's a gated community, and moreover, the landowners are different, and the landowner has a developing agreement between the construct and that what is called developer, but that developer agreement between the contractor and the landowner only, but construction agreement between the house owner and the contractor. So whosoever purchased it, he completed the building, and remaining amenities, it is a gated community, and remaining
So whose
amenities he could
side
not.
are you from?
Basically, I'm also one of the sufferer, and I purchased a plot, and
Okay.
I'm inside the house, I mean, in that community now.
Okay.
So I had to
Yeah.
file a case, or I had to bring him back. Maybe which legal suit, or maybe
I
ADR
think
can
you
help.
can mediation, of course, is always an option and definitely should be the first option to exercise. Otherwise, as far as litigation is concerned, I think you could go in under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code So, you can go over there and say that he's bankrupt, and the court will, the tribunal will appoint somebody as an IRP, the resolution professional, who will take it forward, who will liquidate all the assets and will give you what you need to get. So that would be the legal way forward. And otherwise, definitely you should try mediation first.
Okay, I'll try that. Thank you
Mhm.
very much.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think don't have any more questions. And if anybody does have any questions, please do let us know. You can reach out to us on our email ID, and we'll be happy to take your questions. And I'll pass on the questions to ma'am, and she can answer. But with that, we come to the end of our webinar today, and I would like to extend a huge thank you to sharing her expertise and insights and being so patient in answering all the questions. I think it was an absolute wonderful session, and we are very grateful for you to have been part of this webinar, ma'am. Thank you for your insights. And thank you, audience, participants, young lawyers, and professionals from different fields to join us on this in this webinar. We are very grateful and thankful for your constant enthusiasm to learn. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for such an interactive audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, Sukhna.
Thank you. All the best.